Hello, everyone. Welcome to the product session with TogetherCrew, brought to you by MetricsDAO. TogetherCrew is a community success platform. It uses research backed metrics to assess the health of a community, draw insights, and make recommendations. In this session, you will be introduced to online social interaction networks and how to analyze them, see their proprietary framework for evaluating a community, and also will see what Together Crew is really about and how this tool operates. Um, so with us today, we have Gise, who is senior data analyst at Together Crew. So thank you, Gise, for joining us today. And before we kick this session off, I'd like to also give a quick introduction to MetricsDAO. So MetricsDAO is a web-free analytics community, and we have thousands of analysts in our community that are actively going through educational programs, completing analytics challenges, and just learning how to become better analysts and really be the leaders in the space. So, if you want to join a community, Discord is the best way to go about it. But enough about Metrics DAO, and excited to see what Jisa has on board for us today. If you have any questions throughout the session, chat is the best thing you can use today. So go over to YouTube chat and type in any questions that you have, and Jisa is we'll answer them. And if you're here, do drop a GM. Would be awesome to see who's here with us. And let's kick this off. So, Jise, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Vaida. So, hello, everyone. My name is Chitse. Online, I also go by Enne, since that is a lot easier to pronounce. I'm a senior data analyst at TogetherCrew, and today I'll be providing a product session for MetricsDAO. And so I'm excited that you're all here and looking forward to share a little bit more about what we're building. So we are working on a community analytics platform to help you assess the health of your community. And let me see if I can. There you go. And so at TogetherCrew, we provide deeper insights for successful Web3 communities, because we recognize that DAOs and Web3 communities in general depend on the health of their community. And so understanding and measuring these factors is very important, but also very challenging, which shows from a tweet from last year, where Rafa asked, how do you measure community success? And I would like you all to take a moment to think for yourself. What do you think determines the success of a community? How to measure and define the success of a community? And this is a pretty complex task to find good measures for this. And you also see that in the responses that were given to this tweet. Very broad. Some people were looking at more as the perspective from the community members and their attitude, success stories that they share. Others saw it more as whether the community can still continue to operate and function even when the leadership takes time off or is away. Other people looked at the number of GMs in the chat or the relationships between people. And so there's a lot of different ways of looking at community health and community success. One thing that is clear is that Web2 metrics, they don't suffice. Web2 solutions, that perspective doesn't work for Web3 communities. And a lot of that relates to the fact that we differentiate between a community and an audience. And so in a community, people are actually interacting with each other, co-creating something, working towards a shared goal. Whereas in an audience, people just listen to what you have to say. And so just looking at the number of Twitter followers or the number of people in your Discord server, that is not sufficient. That doesn't tell you how healthy your community actually is and how resilient this community is in difficult times. So at TogetherCrew, we set out to research what makes a community healthy. And we have a paper about this on Mirror. I think the link will be shared if you are interested in reading more about the academic backing that we provide for this. But our main finding that I'll summarize here is that just as a person's health is a result of the aggregation of many organs, our research shows that the health of a community is the aggregation of its nested systems. So what do we mean with that? We look at the community at multiple different levels. So at the level of the individual, but also looking at the relationships between individuals, how individuals might form cliques or subgroups, smaller subcommunities within the larger community, and how these subcommunities then are a part of the larger community. In addition, we also consider the role of the community in a larger ecosystem. And so we look at community health at all these different levels and provide solutions and insights for the health of your community at all these different levels through an online dashboard that gets updated to give you an up-to-date view of the health of your community. And this dashboard aggregates data from multiple different platforms, both on and off chain. It gives you a detailed evaluation of community health, thanks to the research that we did. And it's there to understand the root causes. So not just looking at the symptoms, but actually at the underlying causes for what causes these symptoms, because that's what you want to target for your solutions. And we then benchmark this and identify best practices to optimize your health of your community. And we do so by giving you insights that you can implement right away, execute right away in your day-to-day tasks to have maximum impact. And so this will save a lot of time. No more manual surveys or in-house analytics. All of that can be done through our platform and visualized easily in our dashboard. So we differentiate between interactivity and activity. So not all messages count the same. And you might recognize this for yourself as well. In certain Discord communities, maybe people only post about the next pump and dump and try to get you to buy in and are totally talking alongside each other. And even though there might be a lot of activity in this Discord, there's little interaction. And so this is not really an actual community, but more a place where people present themselves or try to get something done. Whereas in other communities, people are actually interacting closely with each other, replying to each other's messages, mentioning each other, really connecting and communicating with each other. And so that is the focus of our work. We look at interactions between community members. And our initial focus is on Twitter and Discord, but more platforms are coming soon. And the interactions that we identify there are replies, mentions, likes or emoji reactions, and retweets. So all of these are forms of interactions that connect two different accounts. And if you look at all of the different connections between all of the different accounts, you can see this as a large network of interactions. And so all the different accounts, they interact with a different subset of accounts within the community. And you can oversee this as a large network of interacting individuals. And this is one of the things that we analyze and visualize within our dashboards. And so here's an example of that, where all the nodes in the networks, the circles, these can be individual accounts. And when a node is connected to another node, that means that these two accounts are interacting with each other. And so that would be called an edge. And the size of these nodes, they can indicate the number of interactions. So is a person very active in this community or only active sometimes? And the size of the edge shows how often two people interact with each other. And that can easily create fairly complex networks that we'll analyze in more depth later. In addition, the interactions are often directional. And so I can either mention you or you can mention me. I can reply to you, you can reply to me. So we take that into account as well by looking at whether people are frequent receivers of interactions or frequent senders of interactions or balanced. So are people often called and do people reach out to certain other people or are they initiating the interactions themselves? That is also something that we'll visualize in our dashboard. In addition to that, we look at when these interactions happen. And so at what times of the week, how late, what day are people interacting in your community? And that can give insight in when the interactions actually happen, and when, for instance, you can schedule your events to make sure that a lot of people are able to participate in these events and interact with each other about it. And so in this way, you get a quick overview of when your community is most active in when they're actually interacting. Other things that we look at is the type of activity. So how are members interacting with each other? We identify many different activity types or interactivity types, where just an active member is someone that interacted at least once in the last 7 days. And if they did that for the first time ever, then they are newly active. So you can see who starts to become active within your community. If they do this regularly, so if they interacted like for at least 3 out of the 4 weeks, then we also identify that as a consistently active member. So who keeps coming back and who keeps putting in energy to be part of whatever your community is creating. And we also identify vital members. And so these are people that are consistently active, but also not just interacting with 1 or 2 people, but interacting with a larger group of people and really play an important role in connecting different members within your community and doing that consistently. And so we identify these as vital members, people that are really important for connecting the people in your community. And then, of course, we also want to see who stopped interacting. And so who was active in the past, but became disengaged and did not interact anymore, to get an insight in whether people might be leaving the community or being not so interested in what is being discussed anymore. And as I mentioned, these networks that I just showed you, they can have all kinds of different shapes and very diverse architecture. And this architecture is very informative for how the people are interacting with each other within your community. And we can do a lot of interesting analyses on these types of networks to better quantify the architecture of that network. And so 2 important metrics that we compute on these networks are the fragmentation and the spread of influence. And so the fragmentation shows you to what extent there are subcommunities within your community, to what extent are there any cliques. And this is a spectrum with a Goldilocks zone in the middle. So on one side of the spectrum, you have a community that is too enmeshed and everyone is talking to everyone. It's very crowded, overwhelming, and there are no sub-communities. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, you have very fragmented subgroups that are hardly interacting with each other and only focusing on their little subgroup within the community, communicating with those people, having some kind of an echo chamber potentially, but not connecting with the remainder of the community and making it one larger whole. And as I mentioned, there's a Goldilocks zone in the middle where there's some space for some smaller fragmented clusters where people can feel more belonging, feel like they're more part of an actual group of people that they know well and that they see regularly, communicate with regularly. And in these subgroups, maybe decisions can be made faster, people can be aligned more easily. But it's important to have these subgroups also be connected to the rest of the community, so that whatever is discussed and decided also reaches the remainder of the community and creating one larger whole. And so there's this Goldilocks zone in the middle, and we provide you an insight where you are on this spectrum. Then, in addition, you also have the spread of influence, and so that indicates how much you depend on a few people to connect your community, or whether everyone is in contact with everyone and very decentralized. And so also this is a spectrum with an optimal balance in the middle, a Goldilocks zone. And on one side of the spectrum, you have a very concentrated community. So all of the interactions happen through one or a few people. And this makes the community very vulnerable, because if these people decide to disengage, or something happens with them that causes them to not be able to participate in the community anymore, your community is at risk of falling apart. And so you have a few very important people in the middle of your community, and the rest is all connected to each other through these few people. And so that is a too concentrated community. On the other side, you have a community is completely decentralized, and everyone is just talking with a subset of people. But there's no semi-centralized organization where a few people are more overviewing the community as a whole. And so your community can become too spread on the other side of that spectrum. And also there, the Goldilocks zone in the middle is an ideal location for you to be as a community. And where you are on the spectrum is something that we can visualize with our tool, and give you insight in what the shape of your network looks like, which is something that is hard to grasp when you just look at the messages that are happening in Discord, or the tweets that are happening, who's liking and retweeting. But with our dashboard, you can see that within the blink of an eye. And so these are some of the metrics that we compute with our dashboard. And you can try the dashboard yourself as well on TogetherCrew.com. And for MetricsDAO, the challenges that we'll provide will be focused on Twitter data. And as I mentioned, other platforms will be coming soon. And new challenges for these other platforms might potentially be shared with MetricsDAO too. But initially, the focus will be on Twitter data and seeing what we can do with this Twitter data to further assess the health of your community. And if you want to learn more about this, if this sounds interesting to you, then you can first of all join our workshop, where we dive a lot deeper into this Twitter data. What does it look like? How do we store it? I will talk a little bit about Neo4j, the database structure that we use to store this data. Cypher, how you can do actual analyses on this Neo4j database, and do very powerful network analyses. In addition, as I mentioned earlier, we have our conceptual framework posted on Mirror, and there you can read up a lot more about the scientific research that we did into defining these health metrics, and the backing for defining the metrics that we do, and why these are important for community health. So if that is something that's interesting to you, I can definitely recommend the conceptual framework. And I think that this link will also be provided in Discord. I shared the link to this article on Mirror. And then you can also get involved with our community directly. If you want to communicate directly with us, the best way to do so is by either joining us on Discord. We are a unit within the RNDAO Discord server, and this Discord invite link will be shared with you as well. And you can also find us on Twitter. And then, as I mentioned, if you want to try this for yourself and see the dashboard in action, you can do this with our Discord metrics. You can go to our website at TogetherCrew.com and install a Discord bot in your server, and see how your community is interacting, and what the health of your community is.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Ite, for your wonderful presentation. As was mentioned, we will be having a workshop coming up, which is going to be on the 13th of June, that you can all join. So I'm actually going to post the link to the workshop here in the chat, so you can go ahead and register to ensure not to miss it. And in addition to that, I'm also going to post here a few links to the website, to the conceptual framework on Miro that was mentioned, and also the Discord link, so that you can join TogetherCrew community. And we'll also post these things later in the Discord server as well. But for now, we'll put in here so you can join. and ensure to check out these links. So um, so I'm wondering, Jise, like let's say if an analyst is not at the moment part of any community really, or not really sure which community to analyze or how to start with your tool, like what would you suggest them?
So, how to get started with analyzing communities? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I would, first of all, find a way to get their data, and so we are creating pipelines to extract data from multiple different platforms to see these interactions among communities, and based on that, create, for instance, interaction networks like the ones that I discussed. And from there, you can do a lot of interesting research. These interaction networks are really a foundation for a lot of interesting analyses that you can do. And so, in the next workshop, I will share a little bit more about how we store this network data. And so, if you're a new analyst and want to get involved with that, I would definitely recommend you to join that workshop to see how you can access this data, and then you can from there start to do all kinds of analyses, either based on what the architecture of the network looks like, and this can be related to many different things. It can be network level metrics like I just presented some examples of. You can also look at metrics of individual nodes, so individual accounts, like how central is an account within a community, how many connections does it take for that account to reach other people, how many connections does this account have. There's really a lot possible with this network data, and so from there you have a lot of different directions in which you can take your analyses based on what specific questions you're interested in.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. And also, I'm wondering, let's say if an analyst is not yet sure if they want to actually start with analyzing community data, um, would you like? Why do you think this is an interesting route to take for an analyst, and what opportunities are out there for analysts that do get involved in helping these communities to understand their data better?
Yeah. So if an analyst hears this, then it means that they are familiar with MetricsDAO, and so they are familiar with the power of online communities. And I think online communities are on the rise, and with all the different platforms that are being created nowadays, there's more and more abilities for people from all over the world to collaborate with each other and create some really amazing things. So I think this is a really good time to get involved with analyzing these interactions, because as I mentioned, these interactions are very determining for how well your online community functions. And so getting insight in that is something that people have not really been working on very much yet. There's very limited insights in what the interaction of a community looks like and how that then relates to the ability of that community to advance on its goals. Um, and so I think this is a very interesting field and a very good time to jump into doing these specific analyses, seeing how people interact with each other. Another advantage of all these new platforms that emerge online is that they provide a lot of interesting data. So all of the interactions happen online. That data is available and is ready to be analyzed. And so it's a great opportunity because there's a lot of data available and a lot of open questions, and the analyst just has to connect those two dots.
Amazing, amazing. So as you hear, there are a lot of opportunities right now for analysts that are getting involved in analyzing communities. We know that Web3 space is very much built on communities. So every project will probably have a Discord server and a community. So it's a very interesting field. To look into, and TogetherCrew is a wonderful tool to do that. So if you do have any questions, again, it's an opportunity for you to drop them in the chat, and if not, then we will again share the links in the Discord server, so you can also join TogetherCrew community yourself and ask questions there directly. And again, we will be hosting a workshop on the 13th of June together with TogetherCrew. And there in that workshop, you will actually get the practical experience on analyzing communities, and we will get to maybe do that for the first time if you haven't already. So it's going to be a really, really wonderful opportunity. Um, right. So if there are no more questions, then we can finish for today. Thank you so much, Issa, for joining us today in the session, and thank you everyone for attending today. So have a good day or evening ahead, and we'll see you in future sessions. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.